Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we have General McGinley and Major Kirchoff, leaders of GigEagle, the United States Department of Defense's talent platform. Now, there's a question that I want you to just keep repeating over and over and over throughout this whole episode, and also what I want you to ask others, and that is, if the DoD can do it, why can't you? Now, we are so honored to be able to host this and also excited about the long tail impact that an episode like this will have on every single organization. And I say that because what we call flexible talent typically gets thrown in the too hard bucket. Whether it's a large healthcare, a tech company, you name it, a lot of times the answer is, this all sounds great, but it's too hard. And this sounds great for a tech company, but it won't work in X. X being healthcare, X being something like mining or banking, whatever it is. So throughout this episode, I want you to always keep that back of mind and front of mind. If the United States DoD can do it, why can't you? Second, I want you to really listen for the technology and the way that they're talking about this talent strategy as a technology strategy. And General McGinley is going to use this term, agentic teaming. And I just want you to let that simmer. I want you to take a pen out, maybe write down what you're hearing, because this is such a transformational way to really talk about what we call the future of work. Now, within this space, a lot of times people are sitting in HR or procurement or something that typically isn't reserved for a technology first approach. But when you look at what the DoD and GigEagle is doing, this is a massive technology investment. Last, I want you to think about the long tail implications about what happens when you combine the best of technology with the best of talent strategies. And you're going to hear multiple examples. Back to the first thing about if the DoD can't do it, why can't you? A lot of times what we hear is either freelance or flexible talent, you name it. It's good for something that's gig. It's good for something that's short-term and remote. But what about something like a hurricane hits and you need to get engineers, heavy machinery, lots of really expensive, really valuable resources that are in person and you need to get them there in hours? Well, you're going to hear about some use cases like this. And I want you to think back to the first point. How can you take what GigEagle is doing and apply that to your business? Now, I'll tell you one last thing. So the leader who runs this podcast has a background in Navy intelligence. And one of the funny things that I always tell him is we're not solving cancer, right? Or we don't have the nation's defense on us, whatever it is that we're doing related to flexible talent. I want you to think about that because no matter how risky or impactful something is, there is now a flexible talent solution that can solve for it. So without further ado, I want you to really, really enjoy this episode and then most importantly, apply it to your organization. Have you seen Human Cloud's market map? We took the over 1,000 flexible talent solutions and crunched them into a global snapshot. Check this out. We broke them down by segments, by large horizontal marketplaces, vertical niche platforms, fractional platforms, hybrid platforms, even the providers like freelance management solutions, EORs, payroll solutions, and the increasing digital workers. Now it doesn't end here. Next, you'll see the rolling out of these specialized platforms. You'll see the consulting talent platforms, the tech, the IT. Did you know there's some just for customer experience? You'll also start to see the rolling out of things like business models and feature sets. We can't wait for you to check it out. We can't wait for you to engage and collaborate. Go to humancloud.work/marketmap today. Everyone out there, listen, General McGinley, Major Kirchoff, we are beyond honored to have you. And I think on behalf of Human Cloud, thank you for your service. That is the most important thing for you all to hear from us, from Human Cloud, from everyone listening as well. This, I'm not lying with you, this is one of the most exciting episodes I've ever done. I've never been this excited since 2018. And I'm not lying when I say that. The reason is My eyes opened up when I first went to Silicon Valley in 2016 related to this space. My eyes opened up when I went to Microsoft in 2018. But since then, it's been, okay, when's the next big boom? And in the last couple of years, we've seen NASA, we've seen incredible waves of leveraging what we call flexible talent models, but we're going to, talk about that. But before I keep talking, and we have the full Human Cloud team on for you, General McGinley, Major Kirchoff, just want to give a quick intro on yourselves, and then we'll get rolling.
All right. Thanks, sir. So I am on the GigEagle team as the communications lead, and I'm a public affairs officer by trade for the Air Force. I'm a Air Force Academy grad and have been either active duty or reserve for almost 15 years now. So I'm a reservist. And then in my reserve capacity, I'm actually doing currently political military affairs at Indo-Pacific Command.
Yeah, so Mike McGinley, I'm the director of the GigEagle Agile Talent Ecosystem. I also serve as the mobilization assistant to the commander of the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. It's a mouthful, but that's my part-time role. And as my civilian job, I'm at Google Cloud. So you'll see this theme running, this balance of public and private capacity throughout our discussion. But real honor to be here with you today, Matt and team.
This is incredible. And listen, so for you listeners out there, we're going to have some Human Cloud team on as well. Paul and Tony, you guys want to give a quick little intro on yourselves? This is cool. This is really cool. Yeah, Paul and Tony, you go ahead.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm the head of partnerships and operations at a Human Cloud. I am a Navy reservist, so this is super cool. I was active duty for 8 years doing intel in Hawaii and Japan, and then I did Southcom as my last duty station here in Miami. And I've been a reservist for about 6 years, so I love the GigEagle platform. I love the mission and can't wait to get into this conversation.
Checked right before we started and made sure that you were signed up and you were on there. Saw your profile.
Way to live the dream, Paul. I'm Tony Buffum. I am the head of enterprise strategy for the Human Cloud. But prior to this, my first life was in human resources for 20 years, including chief HR officer of FLIR Systems, which you might be familiar with. We did a lot of business with the DoD. And then I joined Upwork, which is the world's largest freelance platform, for the last 3 years with solely the mission to evangelize this as a key critical factor in the future of work and to help really target HR leaders in particular to help them embrace and not resist this as a key lever or a key tool in their box in terms of maximizing the potential talent that they can bring to their organization. So as I learned about GigEagle, which Matt introduced me to, I was absolutely floored. But to me, the biggest resistance a lot of HR leaders at large enterprises have is, oh, we're old school, we're traditional. This is a way of working that's just not gonna fit. And I know that making new things happen and making changes within the military and form of government isn't easy. So to be bringing this very different approach to mobilizing talent all over the country, all over the world is phenomenal. And I think a great example of what a lot of enterprises can learn from. So I'm really happy to be here and I'm really excited for the conversation.
I love it. Well, listen, General and Major, I used to be able to say that we were the ones applying the military level intelligence to the future of work because we had Paul. I can't say that anymore because now we got y'all. So this is incredible. And I want to, emphasize that over the whole course of this episode, we're able to take sort of what the best companies in the world are doing, right? So Tony, your time at GE, Stanley, FLIR, you name it, combine that with government, combine that with DoD. And so this is not just, hey, we made a lot of money, right? Or, hey, we saved a lot of cost. This is literally removing countries forward, removing the US forward. And I know I speak for a lot of my fellow Americans. This is the most exciting I've felt in a while in terms of let's go build, right? It's time to just go build. So first question over to y'all, and that is just explain GigEagle to us, and then we're going to get into the vision. And so over to you to tell us all about GigEagle.
Yeah, you bet. So let's start with the problem, right? Yeah, what we're trying to do here is match people to missions at speed. And so in this current operational environment, and you see this, we're going faster than ever. Even if you think about, a year and a half ago, when we had, before we had the generative AI boom and what we were focused on, and now how different it is today, how we apply and move forward with our jobs, it's different than ever before. Our job is to keep the nation safe, and that requires a high degree of competence at all times and staying current with the latest. And so what we've done here in GigEagle is design the Department of Defense's first AI-driven platform to match people to mission at speed. It's never been done before in this specific way. And we're breaking down a ton of stovepipes to allow people to go online, to build a profile and say, hey, here are not just we call an Air Force specialty code. Maybe I'm a pilot or an engineer, but really what are the skills that I have to bring, and to understand at the skills based level, and then allow other people to create a problem statement. This is the problem I'm trying to solve, or a mission I'm trying to accomplish, and then having that market match made. And that's the power here. Think of it in some ways as a mashup of Uber and LinkedIn, right? That's a way for national security concerns. So what you have on the LinkedIn side is this skills-based repository with a level of granularity that we didn't have before. And then you take the marketplace that is Uber, the ability to make an instant call and find that talent to get that response. That's awesome. And again, what I love about this isn't some grand invention that came out of the military internally. This is applying and leveraging the best of commercial technology, and then actually bringing in a few together and taking an orthogonal approach in a use case that is national security. So I'm going to hold off on getting into the details on the aspirations, but that's all this really is a different way to think about identifying and engaging talent. And I think that it's been more important than ever that we get it right. And so it's a new approach that we're finding very effective in GigEagle.
So I'm going to say something very, very visionary, okay? And then I'm going to give you it over to vision. But one of the reasons I got goosebumps when we first met last year was because when we looked at the past 50 years of innovation, I would argue the greatest invention since fire was the fact that the US invented the internet, right? That was incredible. And it built the stage for every next wave. So if you look at, compute, if you look at mobile, if you look at all the different waves, that was built off the internet, right? Now, what you're doing, I believe, could potentially be the next innovation, the next wave, which is people and how to organize people. And we always talk about, and Tony, I'm sure, we always talk about, listen, this is a better talent strategy, right? This is for companies to make money. But the way you talk about it is so much cooler and higher. This is a problem-solving model to use today's technology and today's future technology to be the best damn problem solvers in the world. And this is how we're going to move a country forward and bring our people along. Because listen, this is the best place in the world to be an entrepreneur, right? So you're literally creating the next internet, I fully believe. Now, I'm going to ask Tony if that sounds too crazy, and then I'm going to hand it over to y'all again, and you give us your vision. But Tony, too crazy? I mean, this sounds like an HR challenge, huh?
Well, I don't think it's too crazy. I think what is really motivating about it is the recognition that all of the best talent, all the incredible talent that you have within your organization isn't always and at all times exactly the talent you need for the challenges in front of you. And oftentimes those challenges come into you at lightning speed, just like you spoke about, Mike. And I think it's really incredible to tap into matching talent with speed so you can get to the results as fast as possible, and leveraging a vast network of qualified and capable talent that are ready for those opportunities, rather than feeling like you have to. We often talk about the difference between acquisition and access. And the talent acquisition mindset is like, any talent that I need to acquire it and own everything they do in all of their time, so that they're beholden to me. And I know that whenever I need help, I've got it. To be able to break free of that very traditional and outdated mindset and think, okay, there's talent that I do need all the time, and that's fixed talent. That's not going away. This is very much an and strategy. But the and part of it being, now there's lots of talent out there I don't need all the time, but is capable and ready. And all I have to do is click a few buttons, and I can immediately access that expertise. And I think having a system and an ecosystem that enables that is incredible. And like I alluded to earlier, I think a lot of enterprises could learn a lot from this type of approach when it comes to solving their own problems and doing it in a flexible but incredibly fast way.
I love it. So give us your full vision, and then just a heads up after, We're going to go into what day one was like, what the challenges have been like. But so lay it out. And by the way, you told me some of the vision last year. And so I can't wait to hear the iteration, the evolution. And it's probably going to be the same because it's so important. Over to you.
So I'll kick it off, and Meredith, I'd love to get your thoughts as well. So this is bold. This is big and bold. What we're talking about here is whole of nation collaboration for national security. And again, these are Mike's comments, right? This is not, I'm not speaking for the department here, but I'm going to give you very directly and candidly what I think where we can go with this. And Tony, I think you hit part of this, which is that risk reduction, right? There's a massive amount of risk reduction if we get this right. That acquisition versus access, a really nice point that you raised there. But what if I said, look, there's a new national security, think forward 5 years, and there's an operational threat that occurs, and oh my gosh, we've never seen this before. How do we do this? And when you think about this talent market we're building, there, like any market, right? There's a demand side, a supply side, and then there's a marketplace in the middle. On the demand side, we actually call that beyond team collaboration. And that is the ability to look beyond the people you have in your organization or your unit. I'm in the Air Force, but what if I could find help from someone in the Navy? Even better, what if I could find help from somebody, a professor at MIT who's that expert? Or somebody from industry that I didn't even know, but now I have access to. That is beyond team collaboration. That's the demand side. I can think beyond that. On the supply side, we call that concept talent fluidity. And this is the ability to let people say, hey, you know what? You have another job, a full-time job, but you can also support over here because this is where you're needed. The market is going to enable you to do that. So allowing market forces to work in talent, right? Which for you, right, this is what you talk about all the time. But for the government, this is a novel concept. But think about the efficiencies and the amount of effectiveness that we can gain. So going back to the aspiration, when I say whole of nation collaboration, what I really mean is any kind of a skill set that could be relevant to national security. We're building that platform to provide us access to that. And I imagine in some ways, and it sounds like it's out there, but imagine almost like a 501c3, a circle ring of these 1c3s who are able to understand different areas of relevance. So let's say one could be technology, one could be manufacturing, one could be energy, you name it. And because they know those areas and skill sets better, they can have members the same way professional societies would today. From our hub at GigEagle, that's the hub, we now have access to each of them. And through them, have access to talent, to the top talent in the country in those respective areas. So what you've done is now figure out a way to essentially, it hacks the market, right? You've created a new marketplace that didn't exist before. And these are Americans who have an interest in supporting national security. And you give them a means to say, yes, I want to sign up for this. Totally voluntary. I'm only going to provide you the information I want. But if you need me, right, you're going to see my skills pop up. And maybe like an Uber driver who gets that pop up, hey, someone's looking for a ride on their phone. They get to decide if they take it or not. And if they do, that match is made. And you start to see the amount of power that you can gather here to solve the hardest problems. And I'm going to give you, and this is something I haven't spoken about yet before. So this is first for you guys. I want to introduce you to a concept that I call agentic teaming, right? So you're probably familiar, this is the agentic era we're in right now, which is the use of artificial intelligence to really act as an agent to allow you to do so much more. But what if we use that power for teaming? And so where we're going with this, and this to me is incredibly exciting, is now instead of saying, I want to match 1-to-1 for somebody, it's not just a jobs board. What we're building here is the ability to solve a problem. I don't care if that's one person or if that's an entire team of people. Because what I can do now with the use of artificial intelligence is say, okay, Meredith has updated all of her skills so I can see everything that makes her who she is and all those skills she's developed over a course of a career. And then I can see Paul. Paul has a whole different set of skills, but together, right? 1 + 1 is 3. And so I can understand that the capabilities from one person coupled with others can give me something that is incredibly new and novel. And when you put that together, that is the concept of agentic teaming. All I put in is the end user. This is the problem I'm trying to solve. And then through GigEagle, eventually, you will be able to go and identify the skill sets that are necessary, understand how they come together. Perhaps, ideally, I think we're going to be getting there too, is you add in the effective domain. So, hey, Paul, you've taken a test, when you join the military to say, hey, just give me some, help me understand who you are as a person. It takes that into consideration. So it's not just cognitive, but it's social emotional as well, because there's a teaming concept. And then it can literally say, these are the components of what Mike asked for as a deliverable. And some of them can be done in shootout, get people to sign up. and they can provide components of that. If it's a deliverable, if it's, maybe sometimes it's in person, sometimes it's not, maybe it's a document, maybe it's a briefing, maybe it's I need you to drive a truck. It doesn't really matter. The point is you have the flexibility to create entire teams of that can generate outputs and bring that back to the user in one fell swoop. So, it's just the way you think about operations changes completely through the concept of agentic teaming. So you asked for the big, bold vision. I'll talk to you about whole of nation collaboration. I added in agentic teaming, and then the concept of beyond team collaboration on the demand side, talent fluidity on the supply side, and then GigEagle as the market where it comes all together. So I'm going to stop there. There's a lot I threw at you. But Meredith, what did I miss? What can you tell us?
Well, I certainly don't think you missed anything, but I'll just go back to during the last few months, we've had the opportunity to kind of engage both inside and outside the Department of Defense. And I will tell you that what really resonates and I've seen people get really excited about, Matt, you being one of them, is this concept of carving new pathways for Americans to serve the country. Many people join the military, but not everyone does. And so the concept that we could begin to leverage America's best talent and apply that to national security is one that I think every American can get behind. And so where we're really starting is, of course, in the Department of Defense and using commercial technology to uncover the latent potential that we have in the department. And so we've started in the reserve component. Those are members of the Reserve and the National Guard who have civilian skill sets, who have experiences, outside of their military specialty code. So if you think of someone like Paul, who is a Navy intel analyst, but also works for Human Cloud and has this breadth of experience that is not captured by our military personnel systems. It's not in our data, right? So GigEagle gives us the opportunity to leverage Paul in ways that we may not otherwise be able to. We might not see that. We would never know it. So if you think of a department of 3 million people and the problem sets that we have to solve in our current strategic competition threat environment, you have problems, you have talent, and that talent is often available somewhere in the department, but we don't know that, and we can leverage that if we can see it. So GigEagle and the technology that we're leveraging gives us the opportunity to kind of unleash that data or harness that data, depending on how you want to think of it, but really just to bring that to the problems we have at speed, make those matches and solve these problems at speed. I'll give one example that I think I'm pretty excited about that I was just interacting with the other day. Air Force reservist in his military job is a medical tech, and on the civilian side is a data scientist. And so Headquarters Space Force was looking for someone in the S6, so that's like their communications IT department, to come in and provide some additional work for data work that they're doing. And so, they found this Air Force reservist on GigEagle, immediately said, this looks awesome, connected with him, made the match, and now he's working for Headquarters Space Force on a gig via GigEagle. So that is really the power of the platform and the power of this concept that is starting inside DoD, first iteration in the reserve component, but we're expanding that and just taking this a step further to outside of the reserve component to active duty, to DoD civilians, and then even beyond that, as General McGinley talked about, whole of nation. We want to leverage those best and brightest in academia, industry, and really just across the country for national security.
So I'm going to add a third pillar, Major Kirchoff, because I think it summarizes what you were talking about as well. And I'm going to call this pillar a radical recollaboration of opportunity. And what I mean by that is, as an American, I think, and I've traveled all over, lived all over. What's unique about being an American is that no one cares where you came from, what your last name is. Literally nobody cares. And for the most part, we don't even really care about education, meaning, did you go to the right school? That is so unique. But you need the opportunity to show that you're going to work your ass off and that you can create impact. And when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, you name it, I would be screaming for, hey, GigEagle is going to give me an opportunity to serve my country and prove that I can work my ass off. And so if what you're doing is literally a radical recollaboration of opportunity in a way that no other country enables their citizens to have this level of opportunity. So I'm going to add that third pillar because that is so
Love it.
I love it. Yeah.
Powerful, right?
I'll write it down.
It's incredible. Now, I'm going to give you either two directions that you can go, okay? One direction is going to be, we keep going down the line of tell us about the big wins, tell us about some early use cases. That's one direction. And they're not mutually exclusive, so we can do both. The second direction is challenges, right? What's it been like from day one to now? What barriers are you running into? Depending on how much y'all love pain, you can start with that one, or we can start with big wins, but you take your pick.
Yeah, maybe we'll start with the pain because if you're in this gig, right, in many ways we're a startup within the department, right? And so if you're going to be in a startup, you're going to have pain constantly. And I think the people that are on our team are absolutely driven by mission. And I think that's what's key here is everyone is passionate about what we're doing and the difference that we're going to make for the department and for the country. And so this initiative started really, gosh, it was about 6 years ago. Now a little bit over that actually, maybe almost closer to 7, with the idea that commercial technology already existed to do this talent matching, right? And Matt, I know I've talked about this a lot. Right? And the concept is it new or is it new to you? Right? And this is something that, commercial, and you talk about Upwork, Fiverr, Uber, Lyft, this is done. This is not new, but applied in this way hadn't been done. And so the biggest challenge, the biggest pain point has been cultural, right? Because what we're doing here is saying, given operational realities and giving a massive advancement in technology, we can do something different than we've ever done before. And that's getting that across for people to say, hey, wait, but I've always done it this way. Why should I make the change? How do I know that it's going to work? Why would I take that risk? What I can tell you is that when we first started, it was pre-COVID. And so if you weren't in the same room as somebody that said, you're not really working. And so how do we get that sense of trust? And so we've built the platform so it allows for really communication that just breaks down barriers. And you can say to somebody, hey, here it is. I can find a way to bring you into my office to do that. But that initial conversation can happen immediately in a way that I couldn't. And it just gives you access based on merit. And so we've just been repeating that again and again to explain if you really are serious about solving your hardest problems, you need the best talent, right? And we're in an era now of strategic competition. So it's more important than ever that we stay abreast of these rapidly emerging technologies. So I think that the biggest challenge has been cultural. Then this question of, okay, where does it live? And to be frank, we've identified a seam where we're talking about is joint, right? This means talent from every service. And what we're saying is, look, we're breaking down the stovepipe. So instead of just thinking an Air Force personnel platform and a Navy personnel platform, we're asking you to think what would happen if we could just get the right talent regardless of where they were. And what we need to be careful is we are still in a military environment. So we have to, there are units that exist for a reason. So we have to be respectful of them. And how do I then, with a nuanced touch, still figure out how, in addition, can I keep those existing organizations, but then allow this extra organizational participation. And that's been a big challenge. But I think what Meredith gave an example that was telling. Once you start to see the power of this, we get a lot of ahas. And once we demo the program or the platform and people can go in and create a profile in just a matter of minutes, you have an aha moment. And that to me has been how we've been able to bridge some of those problems. So let me stop there and see if you have thoughts, or Meredith, if you have anything you wanted to add.
I think you hit most of the challenges are cultural, and I'm sure all three of you at Human Cloud can probably attest to that. Going back to what Tony was saying earlier, you have your fixed workforce, and we have that too, of course, in the military. That's really our mindset broadly. But there's this idea that in a project-based short-term way, we can leverage talent, and the reserve component being, a great example of that, where it is kind of a freelance workforce within DoD. But when you look at DoD at large, it is a fixed mindset. These are my people, they belong to my unit, and this is our mission. And that's important. And we don't want to take away from that. But we also want to recognize that there is the ability to efficiently leverage and apply in that short-term project-based work that talent to problems we have. And whether that's in a teaming or a one-to-one way, that's a big change. We don't typically think like that in the Department of Defense. And so it's just something that we're encountering kind of every step of the way. And we're just working with those people in our networks and people who are forward leaning and have that kind of innovative streak, who want to work like this and want to work with us. And so, yeah, we've had a lot of success gaining advocates and people who are willing to work with us and kind of move fast and fail a little bit. And some of these units that have said, yeah, we're going to work with you. We want to onboard our entire unit and we want to use this platform. And so we're seeing a lot of success in that strategy, but it is not without challenge. And I think we still have a long way to go culturally to adopt the mindset that will make this work most effectively.
So I want to double click on this culture, okay? And Tony, I'm going to give it over to you to give us the corporate side of the culture because there's going to be a lot of similarities. Before I do that, I want to mention that, Mike, you mentioned 7 years ago, when we were meeting with NASA, one of the recommendations was, hey, technology takes 8 to 10 years to go from started to adopted, right? So we're just hitting, and I will say, it feels like the perfect storm in terms of all the settings are now laid out. And there's a lot of settings, by the way, that I think are really amplifying this. I actually think one of the waves and settings is the fact that we've now gone past the either remote work reckoning. We've gone past a bunch of layoffs. We're kind of back to now build. And the freelance economy has, we say it's not just survived, it's thrived. But so we're at a good time. Now, culturally, let me give you my bias, and then I'm going to hand it over to Tony. My bias is that I started freelancing in 2012, and my eyes were immediately popped to this is the most meritocratic way to work, where I can see the direct impact of my work. And I loved the fact that I was, I ate what I hunted, and it was the best model for working. And I had that from being a freelancer myself to running freelance teams to then running a freelance org. So, I've never had this moment of, oh, wow, this must be culturally hard. But Tony, you, right, as a CHRO in such incredible organizations, you've been on the front lines of this. What the hell is it like, right? How do you get Stanley and GE and you name it because I know they're saying the same thing.
Yeah, it's exactly the same, which I think is what's amazing about this conversation is that the truth is, even if you have the technology and you have the data and you have the productivity metrics, there's still resistance because this is different than what we become accustomed to. And so it's what I've learned after the years being at Upwork, even going there, I thought, man, I just have to tell people this works. And then they're going to welcome it with open arms and they're finally going to bring it in. But we realize is even when they sign a contract and they're ready to go with some simple jobs that are low risk, it tends to kind of pick up and then plateau because the low hanging fruit are easy. Those are what takes the least amount of change management. But once those are gone, the platform can die off if people don't really think about it more strategically, which frankly is where you're starting from that strategic mindset. And what I think, what I've seen work in different ways for organizations is very similar to what you're describing. The idea of going outside and outsourcing talent on a freelance or gig basis can be really intimidating and overwhelming for a lot of decision makers. So oftentimes they start by building an internal tool where they can match internal talent. That can have varying levels of success because everybody in an organization is already overwhelmed and busy and exhausted. But there are people that are like, I would like to work on a cool, different project. I want to do something outside of what I do every day. And that starts to build a level of comfortability outside of those fixed teams. And then it's easier, even then, oftentimes I'll talk to HR leaders about when you go through workforce actions and let folks go. Imagine if you offboard them onto an alumni network freelance program that you could, as immediately as you need to, tap back into them on a per use basis. So you maintain that expertise, maintain your alumni network, and you can rehire them, not as a full-time employee, but just for the skills they need. It works great for both of you, especially if it's an open platform where that credit for doing that work, the job ratings, the dollars, or whatever metrics the platform tracks will help them get those future jobs because now it shows they have the track record and some experience. And as organizations get more comfortable because they feel like, okay, we've seen this work with our internal talent. We've seen this work with our experienced external talent coming back and forth. Now we can branch out externally, but even then, there's still always a resistance. I was always surprised by organizations that said, yeah, we're open to using people outside of our business on a remote basis, but they need to be in our town. They need to be near our headquarters. And I'd say, why? Just in case we ever need them to come in. Under no circumstance could I ever imagine it, but that just made them feel comfortable. And that's the next step they get that can move them towards that goal. So even going from domestic to finally globally and tapping into what Matt talked about, I think the biggest aha for a lot of organizations, once they get to that critical mass, is a phrase I've heard in this freelance community for a long time, which is talent is spread across the world evenly distributed up throughout the world, but opportunity is not. And when you have platforms like this that make the opportunity accessible, you're surprised to find the talent at the level that you do anywhere, as long as you give it the opportunity. And that's what takes the real change management. That's what frankly brought me to Human Cloud. And Matt touched on this being like this turning point, critical moment. We're betting on that. That's why we're at Human Cloud, because we really believe organizations need to understand all the things we're talking about, what's required cross-functionally in terms of buy-in and strategic proactive thinking, not just reactive burning platform thinking, but really thinking about this as part of your annual workforce planning. And we can help them do that so that when they take this approach, they have a better chance of success and they achieve those outcomes that are so much better than they would have had they stuck with that old school way of work.
Yeah. So you guys ready for a fun game? So this is a quick little session. There's 2 sections left, and I'm going to go give you reverse order. So the last section is going to be how can we help? How can industry? So how can leading companies help you? How can individuals? And then even how can government? Because there's a lot of policy leaders listening as well.
Yep.
For that, we're going to do a fun little game that I'm just going to call myth shattering. And we're going to go round robin, and we're just going to call out quick myths that we've run into. I'll start, and I'm just going to throw it out and say, freelancing can't get a job, right? You must not be able to get a job. Paul, I'm actually going to ask you quick. If you told your boss, major, you name it, and you said, hey, I'm going to be a freelancer for the Navy, what's the first thing they would tell you? What's some of the crazy stuff you've heard?
A freelancer for the Navy?
Yeah.
They'd be like, you already are. You're in the reserves.
Well, the term already exists. Perfectly said. Major Kirchoff, what are some quick myths you've had?
I'll give one that's more specific to GigEagle. A myth that we run into a lot of times is that GigEagle and this type of a platform, these types of roles, are only for people who are digital talent, only people who have digital jobs. But our marketplace is for all talent across DoD, and so we have people on there who are F-16 mechanics. We've got people who do in-person medical physicians jobs. And that's a myth that we run into all the time is, it's only for digital things. It's only things you can do remotely. That's one of the ones I do.
Such a good shout out. So yesterday we were with the largest frontline workforce platform, and that's one of the fastest growing segments right now. And so that's I despise when people are like, it must be a 3-month remote role. And I'm like, what are you talking? I might as well go drive your car without listening to radio and use one feature. Like, what are you doing? So, General McGinley, what's your?
Yeah, the myth is, hey, if I need the talent, I'll just pick up the phone. I know people, right? And I'm thinking, and especially now because we're looking at this platform that is built out, and we have thousands of people on it, and we can see the skills, and it is mind blowing. I mean, you can just type in random searches, right? And you're going to find expertise you had no idea. And so the thought, yes, we all have networks. And as we get more senior, maybe they're even larger, but in no way do you have a sense of what's out there. And once you see that, when you put that assumption, that myth to the test and you say, well, pick some random skill and you see it pop up, and it's someone in a different service or, and you just had no idea. That to me is and time again, when we show the demo, that's what comes and said, I had no idea that it was that powerful.
I love that. And I'm going to add to it. It's like hearing someone say, I don't need a computer. I'll just use pen and paper.
Right.
And only
That's
2
great.
people.
I love it. Yeah.
Geez, my grandfather and Warren Buffett. Everyone else, we need computers, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, calling on enterprises, what I routinely be asked is, okay, like, let's say we find someone really talented, just like Mike described, really great skills, and can we hire them? And I would often say, yeah, you could, but a lot of the freelancers, most of them, frankly, by a lot of research, they don't want to be converted to your full-time employee. They're on the platform or they're choosing this type of work because they want to have more authority over their time, who they work for, when they work, etc. And that's really important. We see research that at Upwork that said Gen Z selectively chooses at a rate of 52% to go full-time into full-time gig or independent work. And most people think that's just something that's a side hustle or a moonlight job and it's all low-skilled work. They choose this for a career because they see it as diversifying their opportunities and their income and creating their next big job and be able to promote themselves on their schedule. So I think that's the biggest thing is these aren't temp to hires. That's only getting you like a tiptoe step out of the traditional way of working because everybody's had temp to hire forever. This is tapping into that expertise, that MIT professor or whatever that really honed expertise that you just don't have sitting around in your organization waiting for a chance to work on that next project.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, can I pause 1 second?
Yeah.
So pause for the recording. I had to switch the phone, so I am literally at 1%. And I was like, there it is. So I've been watching it go down. Let me see if I can, give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can power up. And if not, then I will I'll go back on the computer. But this is a really awesome conversation, by the way. So give me 1 second. Let me try this.
It's also it's getting like brighter here as we go. So I'm like, sorry, hopefully this doesn't mess us up later on.
There we go. Hold on a second. Let me... Dun, dun, dun. I'm going to have to figure out a way to make this the angle correct.
Meredith, I'll tell you, right when I first joined Upwork, I used to host our all-employee meetings. And the first time I'm hosting it, I lived in a different house, and my desk was facing this window with blinds. Mm-hmm. And we're getting into the meeting, everything's great. And as the meeting, because it's like an all-day meeting, as the meeting goes on, the sun just like getting right into my eye level. And I'm not quite realizing it. Like I'm starting to see it, but I'm like so worked up, like trying to make sure I'm getting the hosting gig right. And right in the middle of one of the conversations, it like hits me square in the eyes. I can barely see the camera. Blinded. You can bet the next time I get up, but I was like, I need to change the arrangement of this room. Fortunately, I have a much better setup now, and I got some spotlights so it doesn't happen. But yeah, good.
It's unfortunate. If we had just been like 1 week later, our office that we're getting a new floor put into is like next door to this room right here, and I'm like, oh man, I would have looked so good. But
there you go. Next time we talk.
Oh, so you're glowing, you know? It's golden now, whatever that's called.
I do have a mini ring light. I got a mini ring light right here to help the glow.
All right.
To offset all this other light.
So I know the exact spot. Hopefully you guys remember what Tony was saying. So Tony, my analogy to you is I now have a computer. I'm not going off-prem. I'm not doing that crazy cloud stuff. I'm just going to stick on-prem. And no, I'm not going to leave my Word doc. I got a Word doc and spreadsheet, but I'm not going to touch AI or I'm not going to touch any of that crap. I'm just going to stick with my computer, my Word doc on-prem, you know? So this last section is we're going to call How Can We Help? And this is everyone. And we're kind of continuing the challenge, meaning that you can kind of talk about some of the big challenges you're going in as well, because I know for everyone listening, we all want to help, right? This vision is massive. We understand that the culture so far is the biggest barrier. We understand the power of having this whole countrywide collaboration, but now we got to get practical, right? And we have to have the right action plan, and we have to have everyone helping. And so you take your pick who you want to start with, but how can American companies, how can American individuals, how can American government and policy leaders, how can we make sure that GigEagle becomes the internet, right? In terms of the most powerful transformation that we're going to ship to the world, just like we did the internet.
That's a great question. So let's start with industry, right? So one of the challenges that we have is, again, if ultimately we're about whole of nation collaboration, and our focus right here is national security, and I had mentioned those nonprofits, those 501c3s to collect information to build skill sets. Part of it is that the right approach, right? So I can't tell you, I'm not sure if it is or it's not, but having that conversation, having people independently say, you know what? I believe in this vision. I'm going to set up a structure, and I'm going to start to test this and to build a community of experts that I can then bring into GigEagle. So folks who understand what that would take. For example, one of the tie-ins. We say, how do we join this community? Looking at something called the standby reserve, which is that you have different types of reservists, and standby reserve is one of them. And so to really looking through and saying, okay, is this an area where we in industry could actually become members, or not everybody, we're not looking for everybody, but those who want to participate would become members of the standby reserve. That takes a little bit of research, right? And then I think they would also go into on the legislative support from the government. Is figure out, okay, can we authorize a pilot test to really expand, to provide the authorities to go do that? I mean, the administration has said, hey, look, really focus on lethality, but focus on efficient operations, making the most of what we have, focus on meritocracy. And what we're saying is, this is that way. This is the path forward to really take the advantage of what people have. But we need help. And you said this to Matt, and I'd love to hear what people think about this is, what is the best way to engage industry first to help flesh out these ideas? It's not going to work unless we have participation on both sides from the start.
I have a crazy idea, Tony, for you. That is I know out of at least I know in the human cloud team, Tony has the most impressive credentials. Okay, and part of that is where he went to school. Now, Tony, I have a question for you. What if universities had a major in meritocracy and the curriculum was going on a freelance platform, and by the end of the semester, proving that they had some sort of score impact ROI? Is that totally crazy, Tony?
I don't know that they need a major in meritocracy. What I actually think what you're getting into, though, is something that we've talked about recently that I really believe in, which is the progression of universal credentials. And that includes, I think that we're already seeing this in universities. I've talked about the Badge Summit, like it's a conference that's all around badging and credentialing skills. What I expect we'll see is universities giving individual credentials for all of the courses that you're completing so that you can then market those on skill-based platforms before you have a degree. Because we all know 4 years in a degree program, in mine, industrial and labor relations, I studied everything from organizational behavior to collective bargaining, labor law to economics and statistics. And I even took some hotel school classes like wine. Like that, the conglomeration of all of that doesn't make me therefore uniquely qualified for things that require specific skills. But each of those skills that I got along the way could immediately be deployed for some type of work based on that skill set that I just earned. That's where the merit immediately gets rewarded in the commercial sphere. And I don't have to get there with my 4-year degree. Frankly, I could do it after the first semester, depending on what I've learned and the value that has out in the market. And I think that's where we'll go. I think when I go to universities, including my alma mater, and ask everybody, have you ever heard of, freelancing and these freelance platforms like Upwork? At least half of them raise their hands. But when I ask them why, how did they become familiar with it? Because they were already on it. They're like, I do it right now. I review resumes for companies. Or when I go to industry conferences, it's like 10%. And maybe they've heard about it because they heard me talk about it last year. They're not on using it the way that students are. And with students, I feel like there's more of an urgency to be like, I need to find a way to simultaneously earn while I'm going to school, which is my full-time job. So I think all those things will come together. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the first way that universities really embrace this new way of skills-powered organizational work.
I love it. So listen, the last question that I'm going to ask both of you, and this is I'm probably not saying this the most intellectual way, but what is the coolest stuff you've seen? And if I'm to summarize, this conversation, I mean, we're talking about probably the craziest innovation I've heard in a while, right? Honestly, in my lifetime. Incredible. We're also talking about a challenge that is cultural. And General McGinley, I'll never forget when you first told me, is it new or new to you? And so what we're getting at is, well, how do you sell for trust in our space, one conversation at a time, and coming from a place of this might be new or new to you. And so I think now where we get to is, all right, show off for us how cool this can be. What are some of the coolest applications, use cases? And part of it might be, I will say, I've seen your platform. The technology is impeccable. And so if you got nothing, boy, do I have some for you. The tech is absolutely incredible. But so, yes, very, very simple question. How cool is this? Tell us about
it. It is. I mean, here we generally talk about it in terms of, imagine you're building a skyscraper, right? And this is the superstructure, Matt. And so you can, every single floor that goes up, you can decorate in a different way. It can have a different purpose. And once you get that understanding of, oh my gosh, let me give you an example. I'll try to keep these short. Military spouses is one floor. We're actually working with OSD, Office of the Secretary of Defense, for personnel readiness right now to build up one of those floors. We're calling it SOAR, which is Spouse Opportunity Access and Recognition. So this community for military spouses to put in their skills so they can find employment as they're moving around. That's awesome. But that's very different than the other floor, which is think about as we go through, even in the last couple of weeks, we need leaders who are strategic, who understand the operational environment, and who bring in private sector experience. So guess what we did? We created a floor. We called it community. And we said, find me C-suite leaders who are in the reserve. Boom, hundreds. And you said, wait a second, I have hundreds of people who are in this C-suite in their private sector now can come in as we're going through a period of transformation in the department and in the government. Now you have access to them. Wow, mind blowing. What would you have to pay in their private sector jobs? And now you can bring them on to the government and pay them as military folks. Let me give you a third, and I'll stop and I'll hand it over to Meredith. Right before Hurricane Milton hit, we said, let's test the platform. What could we do? And so we created a community, and we looked for people with relevant skill sets, be it engineering or even people who could drive heavy equipment and who were located near the Southeast, because you could put in a geographical boundary. And we said, okay, let's create a list of these folks. And then using the platform, we could engage them. We could send them actually text messages. We could email them as well. And so we sent text messages and said, who would be interested if this becomes a big issue in supporting a reconstitution or a cleanup of affected areas? And we got hundreds of responses within hours. I mean, this was this took the team, I don't know, a couple hours to less than that to build and just to fine tune, and then hit a button. It goes out to everybody. And then hundreds of people coming in saying, yes, we want to support this. That's mind blowing. Each of those, Matt, is a different floor and a capability of what we're capable of. You could add one. Sorry, Meredith, I'm going to get another one in here. You could say, there's another component of something that could be a very high advanced technology. You could pull in AI experts from leading companies or universities and create a team to do just that. So really, what is so powerful here is that when in that skyscraper, we're telling all of our users, populate your own floor with however you like. Pick that use case that's important to you, the mission that you want to drive, and we're going to enable you to do that because it's built, and I'm going to go back to what you said in the beginning, it's built on human talent. The ability to identify and access human capital at speed for something that matters as an American, damn, that's where I want to be. So I'll stop. I'm clearly passionate about this, but Meredith, over to you.
Sure. I'll share a few more examples. I think the coolest thing to me is just really seeing the platform in action and seeing how we've gone in the span of less than a couple of years, really. GigEagle was in prototype with Defense Innovation Unit and now is in production. But just within the span of a couple of years, we went from the war in Ukraine kicking off and emails being shot around asking who knew Ukrainian, like who in the Department of Defense had this language skill. And also just the pick up the phone. Who do I know if I have this problem? I need to, come have someone help me with it. That's how we were operating and to a large extent still are. Just a couple of years ago.
It's very similar in terms of each floor is a use case that either wasn't possible or is 10x better because of freelance models. And so one of these use cases that we're solving for right now is a medical company. When there's recalls, how do you get those products taken off the shelves or fixed? Seems simple, massive logistics nightmare. A freelance network has next results in terms of speed, efficiency, and cost, right? Another one is customer experience. How do you have the best customer experience? Well, we have a customer experience freelance floor. And so part of what you're doing is you're enabling countries to have their own talent pools, right? And that's all a country is. It's a giant talent pool. And you're creating it in a way that's making us, and it's going to sound very American, the best country in the world. And the last thing I'll say, General, is that part of what you're doing that I think is so damn revolutionary is you're also enabling transparency. And so through a freelance platform, you know exactly who's doing the work, right? And this was the promise of blockchain. But you can now give that to every single American citizen, both to see who's doing the work and both to see what they can do to then be the person that gets the work. I mean, how cool is that you can look and say, this person got to president. Let's look at the blockchain of what they did to get there. Or this person is now general. Let's look at the blockchain of the work it's revolutionary. Now, General, I want to give you the floor to say anything that you want to the American people. And that can be, go do this right now, right? That can be, make sure your mindset is this, but you have the floor. What do you want to tell the American people?
Yeah, the time for an agile talent ecosystem is now, right? We are developing the platform. We're calling that GigEagle, but it takes everybody. When you talk about a system of whole of nation collaboration, by its very nature involves you. Right? So you are a part of this message. If you were listening to this, I want you to play a role. I want you to play an active role, whether you're looking at legal solutions to figure out, hey, how can we open up the standby reserve? How can I create a 501c3 to help identify and grow the right talent so we can get that badging going and make sure we're tracking it? Whether you're in the military, if you're in the military, I want you to go to gigeagle.mil where you can create a profile. Get on the platform, use it, right? Test it out. This is not going to be perfect from the start. This is not a panacea. But what I want you to think of this as an arrow in the quiver of national defense and a key one. And if we get this right, we're going to revolutionize the way we operate. And we're going to open an aperture to allow participation in national security concerns by many, many more Americans than we have now. And I think that's good for the country. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today and keep fighting the good fight.
I love it. Major Kirchoff, what is the one thing you want to tell the American people?
I think it's that it's apparent, and I think everyone, experience would support this, that there is a large gap, civil military gap, the gap between those families who have many people serving in the military, but really the majority who have none, right? And so that gap is large in our country. But this GigEagle being one part, as General McGinley said, it's one arrow in the quiver. But just the mindset to start beginning to think about, even if you don't join the military, what are the ways that you can contribute to our government, to our national security, to the freedoms we enjoy, right? And I think that this is just such a key element and a starting point to closing that gap, to really bringing us more unity in our country. A while back, I was taking a course about 2 years ago at Air Command and Staff College, and it was civil military relations. And I said to my teacher at the time, I think the key to this, I think one of the ways we can solve this is through part-time work for the military. And he said, "You're crazy. It's not, that's not happening. It's not." He was a B-52 pilot, and I loved him. He was a great instructor. But I think that there is a component of this that's so important for our nation and for Americans, and just closing that gap. And I think we're starting it now.
I love it. Well, listen, I've been waiting to say this for months now. On behalf of our audience, on behalf of Human Cloud, thank you for your service, and thank you for hopping on the pod.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.